Every day in the 1980s, millions of American kids grabbed the same plastic tray, hustled through the noisy lunchroom line, and sat down to bargain over pudding and Jell-O. What filled those trays and how it got there was shaped by budget cuts so deep that ketchup was called a vegetable and entire menus bent to government surplus cheese. But the real story is not what you think it is, and how a typical lunch period really felt will surprise you. Why did these cheap meals become their own kind of ritual? And what did that reveal about growing up then? The bell rings and the hallway empties in a rush. A tide of sneakers and backpacks funnels toward the cafeteria doors, each step echoing off the tiled floor. The line forms fast, snaking along the wall beneath the flicker of fluorescent lights. Conversation swells and ebbs, a jumble of voices, laughter, and the sharp warning from a lunch monitor to keep moving. The smell of heated cheese and canned vegetables drifts through the air, mixing with a faint trace of disinfectant from the morning's mop-up. At the threshold, each student grabs a tray, hard plastic, divided into neat compartments, usually beige or dull green. The tray is cool to the touch and heavier than it looks, its weight a familiar anchor for the next 20 minutes. There's no menu to study, no decision to make. Lunch is whatever waits behind the counter. The line inches forward, students shifting from foot to foot, eyes darting ahead to catch a glimpse of what's being served today. The choreography is automatic. One hand on the tray, the other ready for a fork and napkin. The counter's edge is lined with metal pans, steam curling up behind glass shields. Cafeteria workers, hairnets tight, aprons dusted with flour, move with practiced speed, scooping, ladling, and sliding portions into place. The main dish comes first, landing in the largest compartment with a soft thud. Sides follow. A mound of tater tots, a scoop of canned fruit cocktail, a square of something that might be pizza or casserole. Dessert, often a wobbling cup of Jell-O or pudding, is dropped into a corner, the plastic lid fogged with condensation. No one lingers. The line must keep moving. Each tray passes from hand to hand in a steady rhythm, a silent agreement between staff and students to keep the pulse of lunch hour alive. There's little room for conversation at the counter. Just a quick thank you, a nod, a glance at the next tray being filled. Behind the counter, workers keep pace, eyes flicking to the clock, knowing that another wave of students waits just outside. At the end of the line, the final ritual, the milk carton. Stacked in wire racks, the cartons are small, waxy, and cold. Most are plain white, but on Fridays, a few lucky hands snag the coveted chocolate milk. The carton sits in its designated tray slot, the last piece of the puzzle. With a full tray in hand, students peel away from the line, scanning the room for friends, empty seats, or the best spot to start the day's trades. The whole process takes only a few minutes, but it feels longer in the moment, a blend of anticipation, routine, and the low-level anxiety of making it through before the good desserts run out. For hundreds of kids, this was the daily drill, the hum of the lunchroom, the weight of the tray, the certainty that, whatever the menu, lunch would be quick, filling, and exactly the same for everyone in line. Tables fill quickly, each one a patchwork of friendships, rivalries, and silent rules. Kids slide onto the hard benches, trays bumping together, eyes scanning for familiar faces in open spots. There is a quiet choreography to where everyone sits. Some tables are reserved by unwritten code. Athletes in one corner, band kids at another, siblings and neighbors clustering together. New kids hover, waiting for a nod or a wave, hoping for a seat at the right table. The lunchroom hums with the energy of these tiny negotiations. At every table, the real action begins before the first bite. Forks tap against trays, but attention turns to what is in each compartment. Today's pudding cup is already drawing glances, its chocolate top promising more than the limp canned fruit or the square of yellow cake. Dessert, especially on a day when it is pudding or Jell-O, carries more weight than the main course. A single cup can spark a round of whispered offers and counteroffers. Someone with a double helping of tater tots might angle for a trade, sliding their tray a little closer, eyes hopeful. The kid who got chocolate milk on a Friday is suddenly the most popular person at the table, fielding offers from all sides. One Generation X alumnus remembers the ritual with a grin. You could trade up all lunch period, start with applesauce, swap for a Jell-O, then maybe land a pudding cup if you played your cards right. I once saw a pudding change hands 5 times in 20 minutes. By the end, everyone knew who had it, and the last trade was like winning the lottery. Some tables run like small economies. The most prized desserts, pudding, Jell-O, or a rare ice cream cup, are the lunchroom's currency. Kids with siblings in other grades might broker trades across tables, passing a chocolate milk or a pudding cup under the radar of the lunch monitor. There are unwritten rules. You do not trade away your dessert until you have sized up the offers, and you never, ever give up chocolate milk unless you are desperate. On Fridays, when chocolate milk is in play, the stakes go up. A carton might buy you both a pudding and someone's fries, the deal sealed with a nod and a quick swap under the table. Hierarchy settles in quickly. The kids who get first pick at dessert, usually those at the front of the line, hold all the power, at least until the bell rings. Those who come late, stuck with fruit cocktail or plain cake, watch the trades with a mix of envy and strategy, plotting how to improve their lot next time. Every lunch period, the tables become a market, and dessert is the stock everyone wants to own. The rest of the lunch passes in a blur of laughter, deals, and the low-level anxiety of making sure you do not leave empty-handed. By the time the bell rings, the pudding cup has made its rounds, the chocolate milk is gone, and the trays are lighter, not just from the food, but from the secret trades and alliances that define the daily rhythm of the cafeteria. For many kids, this ritual mattered as much as anything on the tray. Lunch was not just about eating. It was about finding your place, making deals, and maybe, if you were lucky, ending up with the best dessert in the room. The bell's sharp ring slices through the lunchroom buzz. Conversations stop mid-sentence, forks are dropped, trays are nudged aside, and the scramble begins. Every kid knows the clock is ticking. In less than 2 minutes, the entire room must empty, wiped clean of the chaos that just filled it. The rush is part instinct, part necessity, a practice stampede of sneakers on linoleum, plastic trays clattering as they are stacked and slid down the return rack. Some students shovel in one last bite while already standing. Others grab their milk cartons in a final gulp, tossing empties with a practiced flick toward the trash. The cleanup choreography is automatic, almost military in its precision. Trays are scraped, silverware dropped into bins, and napkins balled up and tossed. The return station becomes a bottleneck, kids jostling for position, balancing half-eaten fruit cups and sticky dessert wrappers. Anyone who lingers risks a glare from the lunch monitor or a nudge from the next wave of students waiting outside. The room's energy flips from lazy sprawl to frantic motion in seconds. Custodial staff and cafeteria workers watch the exodus with practiced eyes. They know the drill. Tables must be wiped, benches checked for spills, the floor swept for stray crumbs or a puddle of spilled milk. There is no time for dawdling. Every lunch period is a race against the bell, and the next group is already lining up in the hallway, trays in hand. In most schools, the room is cleared and reset in just about 2 minutes, a feat of collective discipline and muscle memory honed over years. For students, the urgency is built into the day. The bell means no second chances. Whatever deal you were working, whatever last bite you hope to finish, it all ends now. Friends scatter in every direction, some grabbing backpacks, others stuffing notes or wrappers into pockets. The social hierarchy of the lunch table dissolves as quickly as it formed, replaced by the single-minded drive to beat the clock and avoid a tardy slip. Behind the scenes, staff move quickly to restore order. Tables are wiped with strong-smelling disinfectant, trays are stacked high, and the floor is swept for the next shift. The ritual is repeated 4, sometimes 5 times a day, each cycle as brisk as the last. For the workers, the end of one lunch is just the start of another. For the kids, it is a sprint back to class, the taste of pudding or pizza lingering as the lunchroom fades behind them. The bell's echo is the final note, signaling not just the end of a meal, but the restoration of order before the next crowd pours in. Before the first bell rings, the cafeteria is already alive with quiet movement. Lights flicker on at 5:30 in the morning, long before any student steps inside. In the kitchen, workers slip into hairnets and tie their aprons, hands already reaching for crates of eggs, blocks of cheese, and industrial-sized cans stacked along the walls. The clatter of heavy trays and the hiss of steam tables break the early silence. Each worker knows their station and the order of the morning. Main dishes are unpacked, sides are portioned, desserts are counted, and milk cartons are stacked in wire racks. Everything must be ready. Hundreds of meals, all lined up by the time the first wave of students arrives. One longtime worker remembers the rhythm well. They would start before sunrise, unloading whatever came in from the depot that week. Sometimes it was government cheese, sometimes endless cans of beans. The crew made it work, and they made sure every kid got fed. The kitchen runs like a well-practiced machine. Stainless steel pans are loaded onto steam tables, their contents checked for temperature and portion. Scoops and ladles are chosen by size, not color, each one measured by hand to meet the minimum set by the district. There's a kind of pride in the precision. A scoop for mashed potatoes, a ladle for gravy, a careful count of pudding cups so every child gets one. Even with tight budgets and unpredictable deliveries, the goal never changes. Fill every tray, stretch every ingredient, and keep the line moving. By the time the halls begin to fill with footsteps and chatter, the kitchen team has already spent hours preparing for the rush. The trays are stacked, the counters wiped, and the first batch of lunches is ready to serve. For these workers, the day's real work starts long before anyone else even thinks about lunch. Service in the 1980s school cafeteria was a race against the bell. Workers lined up shoulder to shoulder behind the counter, each with a specific job and a set of tools. The first trays hit the line just as the first wave of students rounded the corner, and from that moment, the tempo never let up. Every lunch period meant moving hundreds of kids through the line in as little as 15 minutes, sometimes pushing out 300 trays before the next bell. The rhythm was relentless. Scoop, slide, hand off, repeat. Each worker relied on well-worn ladles and scoops, measuring out portions by habit and by eye, aiming to hit the district's minimums for every food group. There was no room for guesswork. Too much on one tray meant running short for the last kids in line. Too little risked a supervisor's reprimand or a hungry child. Some kitchens had started using color-coded utensils to keep portions consistent, but most relied on memory and muscle. A certain scoop for mashed potatoes, a different one for fruit cocktail, a ladle for gravy or chili. Each tool matched to the day's menu and the quota set by the district. Workers called out for refills as pans ran low, timing their movements to keep the line moving without pause. The goal was simple: fill every tray, keep the portions uniform, and never let the line stall. Efficiency mattered as much as nutrition. In the crunch of the lunch rush, every second counted. Behind the counter, the pressure was constant, but so was the pride in getting the job done. For many workers, serving hundreds of meals in minutes was both a challenge and a point of honor. Proof that even with tight budgets and limited supplies, every kid left the line with a hot meal in hand. In 1981, a single number began to haunt school kitchen offices across the country: 1 billion. That was the dollar amount sliced from the federal school lunch budget almost overnight. Administrators opened memos from Washington and saw the new reimbursement cap, 70 cents per meal, no exceptions. The old margin had never been generous, but now every tray had to be filled for less than the price of a candy bar. District food directors pored over spreadsheets, pencils tapping against the columns. The math was relentless. Labor, supplies, utilities, none of it could shrink as fast as the budget demanded. For many schools, the only answer was to squeeze the food itself. Meals had to be cheaper, faster, and easier to serve. That meant more processed ingredients, more bulk buys, and fewer fresh options. The cafeteria became a numbers game: calories per penny, ounces per serving, trays per shift. One administrator's memo from the fall of 1981 reads like a warning. Effective immediately, menu costs must not exceed 70 cents per reimbursable meal. Review all recipes for compliance. Eliminate non-essential items. Across the country, similar messages trickled down to kitchen managers and cooks. The pressure was immediate. Some districts responded by centralizing their food prep, moving from scratch cooking in every school to massive district-wide kitchens that could churn out thousands of identical meals at once. Others slashed side dishes or swapped in cheaper shelf-stable foods. For students, the change showed up in subtle ways: fewer fresh apples, more canned fruit cocktail, pizza slices stretched thinner, mashed potatoes made from powder instead of real spuds. The goal was simple: keep every tray full, even as the budget shrank. Cafeteria workers felt the squeeze too. They measured portions with extra care, knowing that every ounce counted. Behind the scenes, the numbers drove every decision. 70 cents per meal, multiplied by hundreds of kids, 5 days a week. The scale was staggering. The cafeteria's job was to make those numbers work, no matter how tight the squeeze became. By the early 1980s, the familiar clatter of pots and pans in every school kitchen started to fade. As budgets tightened, districts across the country began shutting down individual cafeteria kitchens and shifting meal production to regional hubs. These central kitchens, sometimes called commissaries, looked less like the bustling, homey spaces of old and more like small factories. Inside, staff worked assembly line style, preparing thousands of identical lunches each morning. Rows of industrial ovens and steam kettles churned out main dishes in bulk. Trays of pizza rectangles, vats of chili mac, and endless pans of instant mashed potatoes. Once cooked, meals were packed into insulated carriers and loaded onto delivery trucks. Drivers followed tight routes, dropping off hot trays and cold milk at every school on their list. The food arrived just in time for lunch, sometimes hours after it left the hub. For students, this meant lunch tasted the same, whether you were in the city center or the far edge of the district. Freshly baked bread and scratch-cooked casseroles became rare. Instead, menus depended on what could survive the trip and reheat well in steam tables. A supervisor from one Midwest hub described the daily operation. We would prep 3,000 servings of spaghetti in a morning, then send them out with the drivers. Every school got the same menu, the same portions, the same dessert. The trick was keeping it hot and making sure nothing ran out before the last tray. This system delivered big savings. Buying ingredients in bulk and cooking at scale meant districts could stretch every dollar and keep meal costs below the federal cap. But sameness became the rule. With most food coming from a central kitchen, local favorites and small variations vanished. The menu was set weeks in advance, shaped by whatever commodities the district received from federal surpluses: government cheese, canned fruit, or frozen beef. If the USDA shipped a truckload of beans or processed cheese that month, every student could count on seeing it on their tray, sometimes day after day. For staff, the move to hub kitchens brought mixed feelings. Some missed the creativity and connection of cooking for their own school. Others appreciated the steady hours and the relief from the daily scramble to make do with whatever supplies showed up. But all agreed on one thing: the job was now about logistics as much as food. Keeping the system running meant careful planning, precise timing, and a constant eye on costs. The cafeteria lunch became a product of the assembly line, a hot meal delivered on schedule to every kid, every day. Menus in the 1980s cafeteria were not just about what kids liked to eat. They were shaped by whatever arrived from the federal government warehouses that month. Procurement officers tracked the flow of commodities on paper ledgers, tallying cases of canned corn, sacks of powdered potatoes, and blocks of processed cheese as they came off delivery trucks. Each shipment set the rhythm for the next month's meals. If the USDA sent a surplus of beans, chili, and bean burritos would show up more often. A sudden influx of canned peaches meant fruit cups for weeks on end. One procurement officer from a Midwestern district recalled, "You planned around the truck, not the recipe." If you got a pallet of beef, you stretched it into every dish you could. Sloppy joes, spaghetti, even casseroles. Monthly menus were rewritten as soon as new commodities arrived. Schools received bulletins listing what was available, sometimes with only a week's notice, forcing kitchen managers to adjust their plans overnight. A February shipment could turn a menu heavy with turkey noodle casserole into a month of grilled cheese and tomato soup, if that was what was in the surplus. The goal was to use every bit, waste nothing, and still meet the minimum nutrition requirements set by the district. Procurement records from 1983 show a typical pattern. January brought cases of canned green beans and government beef, so menus leaned on shepherd's pie and vegetable medley. By March, a shipment of surplus applesauce and powdered milk led to more baked goods and creamy desserts. Every menu decision was a calculation. How to stretch a shipment of commodity chicken into enough servings for an entire school. How to balance the protein minimums with whatever starch was on hand. The arrival of a new truck meant another round of creative substitutions. You learn to be flexible, a longtime kitchen manager said. If you planned meatloaf and got hot dogs instead, you rewrote the menu and made it work. Menus often looked uniform across districts not because of tradition, but because the same commodities were distributed nationwide. A tray in California might mirror one in Ohio, both shaped by the same federal surplus. The procurement ledger, filled with numbers, weights, and delivery dates, became the true menu planner, guiding what every child ate week after week. For staff behind the scenes, the real challenge was not just cooking, but adapting, turning whatever arrived on the loading dock into a meal that filled every tray and met every guideline, no matter how unpredictable the supply. In January of 1982, a kitchen manager in a Midwestern district opened the monthly shipment log and found a number that made her pause. 300 pounds of processed cheese, stacked in waxy 5-pound blocks, delivered straight from the Federal Depot. The note from the district office was blunt: use all cheese before the next shipment. The staff gathered around the backroom calendar, pencils in hand, erasing the planned menu for the week ahead. Out went the turkey casserole and chili mac, replaced by a lineup that read like a dairy festival: grilled cheese on Monday and Wednesday, cheese pizza on Friday, macaroni and cheese slotted for Thursday, and a baked cheese sandwich on Tuesday paired with canned tomato soup. The federal cheese surplus had arrived in force. Across the country, school cafeterias adapted overnight, folding government cheese into every recipe that could hold it. The sudden glut was the result of years of dairy subsidies, which by 1981 had left the government with more than 500 million pounds of processed cheese in storage. President Reagan's announcement that winter sent trucks rolling to food banks, hospitals, and crucially, to school lunch programs. For cafeteria managers, the mandate was clear: serve the cheese, stretch it as far as it would go, and keep costs down. Menus from the time confirmed the pivot. In February of 1983, a New Jersey district menu lists grilled cheese and tomato soup twice in a single week, with macaroni and cheese as the Friday special. In the South, one district's lunch calendar shows cheese toast paired with canned fruit and pudding cups on consecutive days. Kitchen logs from Illinois and Ohio record blocks of government cheese arriving by the pallet, each shipment logged and signed for, with a running tally of how much had been used and how much still filled the walk-in cooler. Behind the counter, workers chopped and shredded, melting cheese into casseroles, soups, and sandwiches. One manager's handwritten memo, tucked into a 1982 shift log, said that cheese must be served daily until supply was gone. Make extra grilled cheese if needed. No waste. The lunchroom that week took on a distinct aroma: part toasted bread, part sharp dairy, a scent that clung to the steam tables and drifted into the hallway. For kids, it meant days of golden sandwiches, stringy macaroni, and the occasional surprise: cheese cubes tucked into a salad or melted over vegetables. No one called it cheese surplus week at the time, but the effect was unmistakable. The federal commodity system had turned a government stockpile into a week's worth of lunches, reshaping menus with a single delivery. On the tray, the evidence was clear: cheese in every compartment, filling every gap, making sure every child left the line with a hot, cheap, and very cheesy meal. Every tray that slid across the cafeteria counter in the 1980s was built to meet a formula, one that balanced federal rules, tight budgets, and the daily reality of feeding hundreds of kids. The anatomy of a standard lunch tray was no accident. Each compartment held a portion measured down to the scoop, the ounce, or the half cup. Kitchen staff followed district guidelines that spelled out exactly how much of each food group belonged on every plate. A main dish, usually protein-based, landed first. 2 ounces was the minimum, whether that meant a rectangle of pizza, a scoop of chili mac, or a slice of turkey loaf. Vegetables or fruit came next, measured by the number 8 scoop, half a cup, the same for every student, whether it was canned green beans, applesauce, or a mound of tater tots. Bread or another grain filled the next slot, typically a single slice or a small roll, just enough to meet the ounce requirement. Finally, the milk carton, 8 ounces, plain or chocolate, rounded out the meal, its place on the tray as fixed as the rules that required it. Behind the counter, the portioning process was methodical. Workers reached for the same battered scoops and ladles day after day, their hands moving by memory and muscle. Some schools had started to adopt color-coded utensils, but for most, the tool of choice was whatever fit the portion chart. A number 8 disher for mashed potatoes, a 2-ounce ladle for gravy, a standard spoon for canned fruit. The goal was consistency. Too much in one scoop meant running short for the last kids in line. Too little risked a supervisor's note or a hungry child. The scoop size chart was taped to the wall in many kitchens, a quiet reminder of the rules that governed every meal. Nutrition guidelines set the floor, not the ceiling. In practice, that meant trays often looked sparse by modern standards. Half a cup of vegetables might be a pale mound of peas or a few spoonfuls of fruit cocktail. Protein was stretched wherever possible. Sometimes a slice of processed cheese counted, sometimes a hot dog or a scoop of beef crumbles. For students, the tray's contents rarely changed, but the routine did its job. Every compartment filled, every portion measured, every kid served. Students remember the results in vivid detail. One alumnus recalls that you always knew what you were getting. The scoop for mashed potatoes was the same every time. The fruit cocktail never overflowed. And if you asked for more, the lunch lady just pointed to the chart and shook her head. For some, the uniformity was a comfort. For others, it was a daily reminder of the system's limits. But whether you loved or hated what landed on your tray, the rules behind the portions shaped every bite. Cafeteria trays today still carry the weight of policy decisions, with over 29 million students relying on the National School Lunch Program for daily nutrition. As debates over funding and food quality continue, what lands on those trays remains a mirror of national priorities and values. The taste of childhood shapes health for a lifetime. What we serve now isn't just lunch, it's an investment in the next generation.